This is an SM Media production. Hi everyone and welcome to the latest episode of Golf Talk right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike, pleasure to be here as always. Got a special guest this week. I'm joined by the Welsh LPGA and European Tour player Becky Morgan. Becky, it's a pleasure to welcome you on the show. Thanks very much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
How are you doing? All right?
Yeah, good. I mean, obviously a bit quiet this time of year, nothing to play in, especially now with COVID. So just hanging out.
How have you been keeping busy during the circumstances that we're all in right now?
We decided to buy a house sort of during the last lockdown, September time, and not sure why we did that, but it's a renovation project, so that's been occupying our time and driving us crazy for the last sort of 4 months. So that's pretty much it, really.
Brilliant. How's your golf been lately?
I mean, God, the last tournament I played was November.
Right.
I had like we only unfortunately got to play 8 events on the European Tour last year because of obviously COVID-19.
Yeah.
But actually, I felt like I was on pretty good form. So was a little disappointed we couldn't play anymore. And basically since November, I put the clubs away for a bit and just starting the last sort of month to get back into it. But obviously the weather hasn't been cooperating that well.
Yeah, definitely. We'll start talking about your early years. Just talk about where you grew up and what your early days were like.
Yeah, so I grew up in, so I played at a golf club called Monmouth Golf Club in South Wales. It was actually just like a little 9-hole club. My grandparents were members there. So my sister and I sort of went along when we were 12. They were sort of encouraging us to come and play. And we just would honestly, like every Sunday, we'd like go to the golf club for Sunday lunch and play golf with my grandparents
Right.
first few years. And then obviously after a couple of years, I think I realized I quite liked it and was fairly decent, and then started having sort of proper golf lessons. And I always played with my granddad at Monmouth, though. My sister sort of lost interest when she was about 18. She was never as into it as I was, but my granddad and I would go out and play all the time. And so eventually Monmouth became an 18-hole golf club, but originally it was just 9 holes, no practice area. So I'd literally just go out and play golf, which was probably good for me at the time.
Brilliant. What were your school days like? What was the plan when you were at school?
Honestly, I think my original plan was to go to university in the UK. I hadn't really thought about going to the States until very last minute. I played on a Welsh team, and the captain had done a golf scholarship herself in the States. And I was talking to her about it, and she said, I actually think that you'd love it. Like, it's really good for you. You obviously get an education and you can keep playing golf, which I think over here, I mean, I know now there's a few different opportunities, but at the time, actually, it was just quite a good thing for me to do. But I was like deathly shy when I was sort of 17, 18. So I think my parents thought I was never going to do it, but I did. I just went and actually loved it.
Brilliant. The highlights of your junior days were obviously winning the 91 and 92 Welsh School Championships. How big wins were they for you when you were young?
Do you know, it seems so long ago that I don't really remember that much about it. I think my sister was actually on one of the teams with me.
Right, okay.
We probably just had a good time, and I happened to win. I don't really know, but I mean, I played like for like Welsh girls when I was, I don't know, maybe 15, 16, something like that, and then sort of progressed up through the ranks of Wales. So, playing on all those teams as an amateur was probably sort of the highlight. But I think the Welsh schools might have been the only thing I won. I think I was runner-up in everything else I played in. So it's probably good that it's a highlight.
Brilliant. And when was the first kind of, like, obviously you go on the scholarship at the University of North Carolina. What was your family like towards that? Were they keen for you to pursue that, or was it?
Yeah, I mean, I think my parents were quite surprised that I wanted to do it. And like now looking back, I'm actually amazed I did too. I mean, I didn't like now, if you're highly recruited now, they'll, they can fly you over to the States and you can have a look around the campus and you can go and see. I literally rocked up like a week before university was starting, hadn't been there, never been to the States in my life. And I just picked this place basically from its brochure because I'd sort of done it so last minute. And my parents came with me. They stayed for like that week. And then first day of university, they're like, okay, well, we'll hang out a few more days, look around. And then they left. And then the next time I saw them was Christmas. So I think they were kind of surprised. And I wasn't that homesick because my teammates were lovely. Everyone, and being British in America with an accent, everybody loves it. So you sort of, everyone wants to hang out with you and stuff. And so it actually made my first sort of 3 months really easy.
Brilliant. What were your highlights for your 4 years over there?
I mean, I won, I don't think, maybe 10 or so college tournaments, which was fun. And then I got to play nationals 3 times, but unfortunately not with my team, just by myself. So it's, it's not quite as much fun. But it was just all around, just like a really good experience for me golf-wise too, because I was sort of away from home obviously the coach could help a little bit, but my swing coach was back here and I had to sort of fend for myself a lot and try and basically figure out how to get around a golf course when you weren't playing very well. So that was probably the thing I learned the most from college, really, was playing ugly golf and scoring at times.
Brilliant. You obviously you played in the 1997 NCAA Championship and finished 10th. How big an achievement was that for you to be doing so well in a massive tournament like that?
Yeah, I mean, that was my last year of college. This is like, God, this is going back in history. I'm trying to remember all this stuff. So yeah, I mean, it was a big, and it was a nice way to sort of finish my college career. And I'm obviously now, like, looking back, there were some really, really good golfers that were sort of featuring in the top 10 of college golf and stuff. So that was a great achievement. I mean, a lot of like NCAA champions go on to play really, do really well on tour. And so finishing 10th was, probably the highlight of my college golf for sure.
Brilliant. You come back home, you graduate with a major in geography, and you come back home and you play in the Curtis Cup twice in 1998 and 2000. How good an experience was that for you as well, to play for them?
Yeah, I mean, that was probably the first time I'd really played golf in front of, a decent amount of spectators. I think my first one was in Minnesota, I believe. And so I think we all got there and were like, whoa, like, this is kind of a big deal. And unfortunately, we didn't win either one of them. And so I'm sure my experience could have been better, but it definitely set me up for later on in life, playing in front of lots of people, because, the pressure of the Curtis Cup as an amateur is huge.
Definitely. The Vittorio Trophy as well, you played that twice. What was the experience like there?
Same again. I mean, we had a bit of a spell in British golf where we weren't very good, and if it was my fault. But again, it's just so much fun just looking back. Actually, just a friend of mine on the other day posted some pictures on Facebook back basically from this era that I hadn't seen for a really long time. And I mean, some dodgy haircuts, but it was just really fun just seeing everyone again. And, we don't get to play in that many team events as a pro. And so they were probably, the amateur days of doing that was probably some of the most enjoyable times of my golf career, just being on a team and having fun and stuff. So it just sort of all set me up, I think, for when I eventually decided to turn pro.
Yeah. The 1996 British Amateur as well, you finished runner-up. Were you unfortunate, or?
No, I mean, I was so surprised that I got as far as I did, to be honest. I mean, I just sort of went, I think it was at Royal Liverpool, and went there thinking, I was a decent amateur. If I can get through a few rounds after the stroke play, do some match play, and then all of a sudden I'm in the final against Kelly Keeney, and I didn't give her a particularly good game, but it was really fun to be in the final and stuff. The funny thing about that one was, though, the very following year I went to caddy for a friend of mine in the States who had been invited to play in a professional event, and Kelly Keeney had turned pro, and she was drawn with her. And so we got on the first tee, and she introduced herself to me, and I was like, oh, I actually met you before. And she said, oh, have we? I was like, yeah, you beat me last year in the final of the British Amateur. She's like, oh, I'm really Sorry. So I don't know whether she didn't expect me to be in like that environment, like on the other side of the bag. But yeah, so I obviously wasn't overly memorable.
And then obviously you've another second place finish in the 1998 British Stroke Play. How good is it, although you didn't win, how good is it though to be finishing really high up in a big tournament like that?
Yeah, amazing. Like just, I mean, I look back at my amateur career and think, you know, it was pretty good. But I think the one that I wish I'd always won was the Welsh amateur, because I think that was probably the one that I had the best chance to win all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I managed to, I mean, I was beaten by good players, but I sort of managed to talk my way out of a few of those. So I think finishing runner-up in both of the major British tournaments is huge for me. But I think I was always disappointed that I didn't ever win my sort of national title.
Yeah. Was it always a plan to turn pro?
No, not at all.
Right.
In college, I just thought, I'll do some college. I'll figure out what I want to do after. And obviously I was, you know, I got better through college, got to play on some, you know, British teams when I finished. And I got invited to play in the British Open. And it was at Woburn at the time as an amateur, and made the cut. I played with Carrie Webb in the last round, who I think at the time might have been world number 1 or 2 or something. And I just thought, wow, I mean, actually, this actually might be quite a fun thing to do. Mm-hmm. And so I think that really made me think, yeah, I'm going to turn pro for sure. And then, you know, I haven't really looked back, but it was just sort of it wasn't like, you know, I sometimes meet like 15-year-olds now, they're like, oh my God, I want to turn pro, I want to do this. I was like, I had no idea till I was about 24, 25 that that's what I wanted to do.
Brilliant. You turned pro in August 2000. Was there a good support network for you when you made that decision?
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate enough to have, Wales had a lottery funding program for sports. And so I was lucky when I turned pro. And so as the last few years as an amateur, I was supported by them too, financially. And then when I turned pro, I was fortunate enough to get a grant from them for my first year, just to sort of, you know, help pay for some expenses. And stuff, so which was really, I mean, really helpful, and I'll always appreciate it because I didn't have any sponsorship at the time, so it was just quite nice knowing that I had a bit of money behind me to go to the States, especially. And like my parents were always really supportive. My grandparents, obviously, like I was never forced to do anything. I just wanted to do it. So yeah, everyone was, you know, when I went out to the States, everyone was really happy and excited for me.
Brilliant. You finished 6th in Q School and earned your European Tour card. How big an achievement was that for you?
Gosh, well, it was at the time huge because unfortunately that was the week that my mum died. Right. And so I'd played a couple of rounds, and to be fair, like she was ill, so it was going to happen at some point, unfortunately. But I just always remember my sister calling me during the week saying, you know, unfortunately, mum's died, but you can't come home. You're not allowed to. That's the only reason I'm calling you. Mm-hmm. And so I had to stay and play, I think, the next 2 or 3 rounds. So fortunately, after 2 rounds, I think I had like a 6 or 7 shot lead. And so I could just sort of coast home and you know, finish the week and then go home. But it was, yeah, I mean, getting both of my sort of cards the first year, obviously the LPGA I think was the week before, and I flew from there to Portugal. That was really unexpected. I think going to the States, I was just thought, oh, you know, I'll try it and see what happens. And I actually lost in a playoff for the last sort of full card in America. But I thought, you know what, that's actually really good. Like I'll get to play some events, I'll sort of ease myself into it, and then did fairly well in Europe. So basically right from the start, I was fortunate to get to play in everything that I sort of wanted to. So
brilliant. You go into the LET and you play 8 events and you don't miss a cut. 4 top 10s you had in your first year, and you miss out in the French Open and a playoff with Suzann Pettersen in your first year. Like how good a first year was that, and what was your memories of the French Open?
So yeah, I mean, it was a really good first year for me. Funnily enough, like I think there was 3, I think it was French, maybe a couple of French in the Spanish guild that were also rookies that had played really well. So I think I finished 10th on the order of merit and was the 4th best rookie of the year. So I was not overshadowed, but there was like a lot of players that people were talking about at the time. And so it was a really great start to my career. In regard to the French Open, my dad actually caddied for me that week, his one and only outing on the bag. He sort of retired after that because he thought it couldn't get that much better. So yeah, I mean, it was great to get in the playoff. Unfortunately, didn't work out for me, but it was good to put myself under pressure sort of early on in my career, and sort of made me realize that I belonged on tour.
Did you know then that Suzann Pettersen would go on to be as good as she was?
Yeah, I mean, she was good. I mean, she was a really good player. She's just like, a powerhouse. Like, she's hit it miles then too, and just and she just has the confidence. Like, she oozes confidence, and so I think everyone thought that she would actually be better earlier. I think it took her a few years to actually become really quite dominant, but early on she was sort of talked about a lot for sure.
Brilliant. You also do well in the LPGA. I keep forgetting how to pronounce that. 16 events you played in that season. You were second in the Rookie of the Year. How good was that? Obviously, you're getting in with some very, very good players. Like, who were the good players that stood out to you when you first went on?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I first started, the Koreans, there weren't as many Koreans playing on tour like back in 2001. But I think the Rookie of the Year was Hee-won Han, who was, I think, one of the best Koreans at the time. And yeah, it was. I mean, the States, the quality in America is just unbelievable, and it actually just gets better and better every year. I mean, they're so good. So to finish second in the Rookie there, I think was a bit of a surprise to me. I think I've always been fairly consistent, and so I just put in quite a few decent events and stuff. And my first actual event in the States, I think I finished 7th, and it was just sort of like, oh, okay, this is fun. And so, again, it sort of set me off. Like, I made a bit of money and thought, okay, like, I've got, this is another like stepping stone. I've got some money going forward. I can, work for the rest of the year, take a little bit of pressure off myself. And so, like, the first year was fairly decent. I think I finished maybe 80th or something around there or something and set me up for the next year for full playing rights. So it was a good start on both sides of the pond, I suppose.
Brilliant. You go into 2002, obviously you've been another consistent year on the LPGA and the LET. 2003, I want to touch on though, you have your best major finish. You finished tied 6th in the Women's PGA. How did you feel you performed in majors?
Generally, not brilliant, but I mean, that stage of my career, I think 2003, 4, 5 was probably like my purple patch where I just felt like everything was clicking really well, and I was in contention quite a few times and had some really good finishes. And so the majors obviously were important to me and stuff. I mean, I think obviously every time you play the British Open, it's a big deal for me, especially being British and stuff. But yeah, I mean, majors, there is a lot more pressure on you, more fans, more TV, you best field of the year for sure. So it's always good to play well in those. But I didn't necessarily feel like that was, I was always trying to play well every week. And if I had a good week in a major, that was a bonus. But it wasn't my priority to peak for that week. I just always wanted to be sort of consistent and do well in other things too.
Yeah. You finished second in the LPGA Classic and you've 7 top 10s in 2003. You narrowly missed out in the Solheim Cup. Was it always a kind of the big target to get into the Solheim Cup team?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm over that bit yet either. I mean, I think if I was ever going to get in it, that was the year. And, at the time, I was playing really well in America. There weren't that many Europeans ahead of me on the money list in the States. And I guess the thing that I didn't have was experience. And so it just sort of, I think that was the reason I was given at the time, but I wasn't chosen as a wild card. And obviously they went on to win that year, so they probably potentially picked the right team. But I was really, that took me a little bit of time to sort of get over, because I'd played predominantly in America, and I had changed my schedule a little bit in the summer to come back and play more European tour stuff, to try and impress upon them that I wanted to play, and I was playing well. I think I finished third in the Swedish Open a couple of weeks before they picked the team, and then the team was picked after Wales, and I think I finished top 15 or top 10 or something. So I was playing pretty well, and I was a little disappointed that I didn't get selected for that. But yeah, it did take me a bit of time to get over that. But you know, that's golf, and I mean, to even be close to getting on a European team is, you know, is good. But it's obviously only 12 players, but it was a little disappointing, and unfortunately haven't played well enough since to, you know, get on a team. So.
And see, obviously, the next couple of years, you play a lot in, as you said, you play a lot in America. Like, did you find it comfortable over there? Like, did you find that there was less pressure on you over there?
I definitely found it comfortable. I guess because I went to college there, I found it quite easy going back there. And I mean, the thing with America is everything's the same state to state. You know, the same hotel chains, same restaurants. And, you know, you could almost say it's slightly boring because there's not really a different culture. And, you know, whereas if in Europe you go from France to Italy, you know, Scandinavia, everything's totally different restaurants, different hotels that you're not really familiar with. Whereas in America, everything's sort of very similar. And so it was quite easy to get around and, you know that like a certain hotel is always okay wherever you are. And, you know, you fall back on the restaurant chains all the time that you know are okay, rather than trying like a local place, which you'd probably do in France or something. So I found it very easy living in America, and I moved there when I bought a house there in 2000, at the end of 2003 in Florida. And so, yeah, I was very comfortable living there, and I'd come home a few times a year, but that was definitely my home for quite a long time. Brilliant.
You represent Wales in 4 World Cups with Becky. How good was your partnership with Becky, and how good was the experience playing in the World Cup representing Wales?
Yeah, I mean, that was really fun because Brew hits it miles and I don't, and so as a partnership we actually gelled really well because, you know, especially in the foursomes, like she wasn't mad keen on wedge play, and so she'd hit her drive miles down the fairway. I'd have a wedge into a par 4, and then when we reversed it and I had to hit the tee shot, she'd have like a 6 iron or something, and so, but she loved it because she was much more comfortable with like her longer irons. And so I think the 3 or 4 times we played, we really played. I mean, I think we finished 3rd or 4th one year, and, you know, I think we had quite a few good finishes, and I think that was the sort of closest we all get to playing on a team, you know, once a year and stuff. So it was fun, and it was in South Africa, so it was early on in the season, like nice weather. I mean, I wish we still had it, honestly. Like we absolutely loved it. It was good. I was disappointed when it stopped.
Brilliant. What was the camaraderie like with other players off the course? Did you have like good laughs when you weren't playing?
At the World Cup?
Basically just when you were playing like on tour, like, how was there some good laughs you had off the course?
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, I'm sure, like, I think it's the same on any tour. Like back in the day, there's, you know, loads more stories than nowadays. I mean, it was a lot more social. You know, back then, like you'd, you know, finish your round and go have a drink or something, and, you know, meet people for a beer or something, and like Sunday nights would be quite fun because you'd have like Monday off generally, and then head on to the next event. And so I think in the early days, the social side of playing was a lot more fun. But obviously now it's, you know, it's serious business. I mean, it was then too, but there just seemed to be a bit more camaraderie then. But saying that, like, the European tour is still very friendly. I mean, everyone's, you know, you sort of end up staying in the same hotels in Europe again because, you know, you're going to India or China and stuff, and you're not really going to pick your own hotel. We don't know anything about them, and so you just sort of stay in all the, you know, like the official hotel, and literally the whole field's there. And so, you know, you're sort of having dinner together, you know, maybe a drink here and there. And so I think it's a lot friendlier on the European tour. America, you know, sort of like I said, everyone has their favorite hotel chains and they'll go stay in them, and it's all very separate. And then at the golf course, you'll see people. And, you know, I have some good friends from playing in America, but I'd say that most of my friends now are sort of European based for sure.
Brilliant. The next few years, you're still playing in the tour, but you that form a wee bit? Where did you feel you was kind of going wrong for you?
Honestly, I think golf has like changed so much since I started playing, where, you know, like strength and power, distance has become so critical. And so, you know, early on, the first sort of part of my first half of my career, I'd say, you know, I could still get away with being a short hitter and competing. You know, a lot of the golf courses we played were traditional, you know, tree line, quite tight, and so you had to sort of plan your way around. And I think, especially in America, sort of the golf courses have changed a lot to a lot of resort type courses, sort of wide open. And so like a lot, I mean, you know, and everyone's hitting at miles. So I think that's been the thing that has held me back in the last sort of half of my career, because some courses still suit me, but there's a lot that I know that I couldn't win on. Like it's, you know, it's just, if I have a decent finish, it might be like a top 20 or something, because that's, you know, my goal for the week is, you know, it's, you know, if everyone's hitting the par fives in 2 and I'm not, and, you know, they're flipping wedges into holes I'm hitting 5 irons into, it's hard to compete. And I think you see that on, I mean, pretty much all the tours now, that, you know, the long hitters are really dominating even in the women's game. So I think that's been, I don't necessarily think I played any worse. I just couldn't score as well as I did earlier in my career, because I was, you know, like I still have a good wedge game. My short game's good, but I don't hit it as far as Alexi Thompson or Anne Van Dam or something. And so, I mean, I'm always striving to hit it further, but it's, you know, I'm suddenly not going to come up with 40 yards at the age of 46. So I mean, I can compete in Europe for sure. And which is why, you know, one of the reasons I came back to play in Europe, because I wanted to play where I was still competitive and not just making up the numbers.
Yeah, definitely. How hard was it for you as well, like playing when did you move back from America?
So sort of really only sort of the middle part of 2019.
Right, okay.
I'd started to play quite a bit more in Europe, partly because my status in America wasn't really good enough to play week in, week out.
Right, okay.
So I sort of made a decision that I was going to focus more on the European tour anyway. And then it just, there wasn't really anything keeping me in America. I wasn't really playing there. And, you know, I suppose 10 years ago, I would have said that I would never have left the States. But now I've actually moved back to the UK. I think it's the best thing I did. So it's just funny how things change over your life. But
brilliant. You finally won your first pro event in 2018, the Indian Open. How good a performance was that to get that one?
Yeah, finally is the right word there. I mean, it took me 18 years. Gosh, I mean, it was, I mean, part relief, part absolute joy. I mean, I'd put myself, especially in Europe, you know, I'd put myself in contention quite a few times, even in the, you know, the previous years, and hadn't played particularly well on the weekend or on the last day, especially. And so to actually finish it was, I mean, unbelievable. I mean, and I don't know if I'll ever win another event. I hope so, but if I don't, I'm just really happy that I eventually won one. And so, to be honest with you, that's, if I was going to win a European event, that was one of the courses that I thought I could win on.
Yeah.
It's quite tricky. I would think the guys play on it as well, and it's like there's trouble everywhere. And so it sort of suits my game, like fairly consistent and stuff. So yeah, it's just, I'd sort of been building up. I think I'd had a second or third place there and quite a few top tens, and the stars aligned in 2018. So no, it's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, I just, every now and again, I'll go back and watch the little half-hour video to make myself feel better.
Brilliant. You've got a really good relationship with Yonex. You're one of Yonex's tour players. How important's that relationship been for you when you've been playing?
Yeah, I've been with them the last couple of years. And it's not, I mean, in America, it's easy to, you know, they're throwing clubs at you, you know, the manufacturers and stuff. And, you know, and that was probably one of the biggest differences coming back to Europe, was just all of a sudden you're on a driving range and there's not a tour rep in sight. And, you know, I mean, the LPGA has Callaway, Ping, Yonex, PXG, not Yonex, sorry, PXG, who else? TaylorMade, not so much now, but and so you could go pick up a driver, and if you liked it, you could put it in the bag and boom, done. And Europe's a lot different. And so when Yonex approached me to represent them, I sort of jumped at the chance because obviously they have good stuff, and it was just nice having someone backing me over here, and having access to golf clubs and stuff. And so I basically just go to golf courses, driving ranges and stuff, and just do some days for them where I, generally women, 20 women or so will come along, and I'll do like a clinic, and we might play a few holes and stuff. So unfortunately last year I couldn't do any of that because of COVID, but I think we're planning on doing quite a few this year.
Brilliant. You also met your partner Emma as well. How important's Emma been for you when you've been kind of past couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, brilliant. Like, she's not really a golfer, and so in a way I absolutely love that, because it's nice to get away and not have to talk about golf all the time. And obviously she's in a really interesting job, and so we both have like pressures in our life that I think a lot of other people wouldn't necessarily be able to sort of talk to other people about, because obviously when she's in front of the camera, boom, done, you've got to perform. And in a funny way, it's the same, playing golf and stuff. If I don't perform, I don't get paid. And so I think we both understand each other's jobs and can sort of give each other space when we need it and support when we need it. So it's worked out really well. And obviously it coincided with me coming back to the UK as well. So that's why we've bought a house and are renovating it. I mean, it's just, it's great. I'm trying to get her to play a bit more golf, but this time of year is, not great. But we're working on her game for sure.
Brilliant. Before coronavirus came in, how did you feel you were playing?
Gosh, tricky, because I mean, I think looking back, I'd started working at the end of 2018. 18. God, the years just roll into one, don't they now? 2018 with Robbie King at the Carrick.
Right.
I was spending a lot of time here. 2019, not even 2018, 2019. And so I was really excited about starting the season in 2020. And so we actually I got to go to Abu Dhabi, and it was going to be sort of a small event before we were originally supposed to go to Saudi Arabia. And obviously everything then got cancelled, but I sort of got to Abu Dhabi and was like really excited about where my game was, played a few practice rounds, and was like ready to go. And then basically like that, the tournament was gone. And then obviously Saudi Arabia was postponed until the end of the year. So I was raring to go. And then we had the first lockdown for, however many months it was. And honestly, I just put my clubs away for a bit.
Right.
And I know everyone was putting up nets in the garden and hitting into sheets and stuff. And I mean, I had a putting mat that I would do a bit of putting on, but I actually just sort of enjoyed having a bit of time away from it all. And then sort of when I came back, I still had the level of excitement I had when I went to Abu Dhabi, because I was like, okay, let's build it again. And so I'm like sort of more excited about golf now than I have been for quite a long time. And the 8 events I got to play last year, I think I had 4 or 5 top 15s and made all the cuts. And so it's actually, I'm looking forward to starting again, although now it looks like it probably won't be till May again. So it's a lot of time off.
And do you still enjoy, see when you're out playing in tournaments, do you still enjoy playing?
Yeah, I love the competing part. The practice part needs more motivation for me nowadays. Like, especially living up in Scotland. When I was, sort of living in Florida and stuff, I was okay with going out in my shorts and t-shirt in January and hitting balls and stuff. So now I sort of really have to persuade myself to go to the range. But the actual competing part of it, I still love. And when I stop loving it, I'll probably stop playing. But at the moment, I'll play for another year or two and see what happens.
Brilliant. What's your plans after you stop playing?
That's such a good question. I don't know. I mean, when I was living in the States, I actually moved, the last part of living in America, I lived in Oregon, and I volunteered at a university and was sort of the volunteer assistant coach. Right. And I really enjoyed sort of helping the team not necessarily with swing stuff, but just sort of getting them around a golf course, mental stuff, just strategy on the course, because I think that's always sort of been one of the things I've been better at. And so I wouldn't mind going into coaching potentially, but I'm not really sure. I think that also might be a reason why I haven't stopped playing yet, because I haven't decided what I want to do. But I can't really imagine myself outside of golf unless something really extraordinary came along where I thought, wow, that sounds really exciting. But I just sort of I enjoy helping people get better, but we'll see.
Brilliant. Are you all right closing with some quick fire questions?
Yeah, sure.
Brilliant. Out of your whole career, who would you say was the best player you ever played with?
Probably Annika Sorenstam. I played with her when she was world number 1.
Brilliant. How was that experience?
It was, a little terrifying at the time, but it was a good learning experience for sure.
Brilliant. Favourite course you've ever played at?
Royal Melbourne, down in Australia.
Brilliant.
You can have a head cover.
Interesting fact about yourself?
Oh gosh. I like to dabble in stock market a little bit.
Really?
Just with, nothing serious, but I have a few apps on my phone where I do a little trading if I see something interesting, but nothing life-changing, but it's just quite a bit of fun here.
Very good. Favourite film and TV show?
Film would have to be Shawshank Redemption, probably, which I'm sure everybody says, because I think it's like number 1 on IMDb.
Yeah, we've had that a lot, yeah.
Yeah, TV show, gosh. I enjoy watching silly shows like The Voice, because I just think it's just quite fun. I love a documentary too, but if I had to sit down and watch a show, it would probably be something like The Voice.
Brilliant. Go-to club?
58 degree wedge.
Very good. Best friend in golf?
Probably Australian girl called Sarah Kemp. But unfortunately, I haven't seen her for ages, obviously because of the way things are. And she's actually playing mostly in the States now, whereas she used to come back to Europe a bit more. But she's probably the most fun to stay with and, practice rounds and stuff. She never changes, good or bad, if she's had a good round. So that's probably the most chilled out one of my friends to hang out with here.
Brilliant. Final question, your dream 4-ball?
Gosh, it wouldn't be any other golfers.
Really?
Probably, I think Barack Obama would be quite interesting. I think he's probably got some good stories. Then I'd have to pick someone funny. Maybe like a Trevor Noah or someone, like a stand-up comedian. And then I think I'd have to put Pink in there because she's my favorite concert ever. So I'd like to have a chat with her as well.
Brilliant. Becky, it's been an absolute pleasure to you on the show. Thanks very much for joining me. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Thanks very much.
No worries.